We invite you to hum along as we gather. Whoever you are, it's good to see you. Whoever you are, we welcome you.
Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Whomever you love, we welcome you. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you. Welcome back to as we gather for our Labor Day Sunday service at First Unitarian Church of Toledo. We invite you to come back next week again for our in-gathering, another in-person outdoor service. The topic will be quintessence. Couple of announcements. We are having a rummage sale. Did you hear me? I know we have some motorcycles. A rummage sale. So if you have things you would like to contribute, if you would like to volunteer your time, or if you would just like to shop sustainably while you're supporting your community, come on down on September 18th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. 100% of the proceeds from this rummage sale will support First Unitarian. Flyers will be available at next week's outdoor service for those interested. And please contact Michael Davison if you're interested in volunteering or if you have any items to donate. You can contact us after if you want some phone numbers and things. One other, we will be beginning back Handbell Choir. Our singing choir is for now still on hold. We want you all to be careful and healthy as this Delta variant rises. But our Handbell Choir will be socially distant, masked, beginning the week after in-gathering. Keep an eye out in your flyers. Sundays at 1 p.m. You don't have to have previous experience reading music. Those of you who have been involved in what we affectionately refer to as the Toledo Dinglings, please bring a friend. It's going to be a good time. And also one last thing, if you have a kiddo or someone who identifies as young at heart who would like some frolicking space, we've got games set up in the back and we've got space to play. So if you are young, if you would like to explore that after the service too, you're welcome to. We can all play large soccer. All right, we have some opening words today for Labor Day by Megan Visser, adapted. We're in this churchyard, and here virtually too, for kindness and comfort. May rough-worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter this place of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive live to know justice. We enter this open-air sanctuary of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter this place of courage and friendship. May we proceed hand in hand toward freedom.
And as we light our chalice today, we recognize that this flame might not even light. It definitely will blow out at some point, but it is the symbolism of lighting our Unitarian Universalist chalice, and I choose to try the real thing with flame rather than turn on a battery light for our summer services. So, this is Honoring Our Labors by Florence Caplow. In recognition of Labor Day, we light this flame to honor all work, including the work of our heads, hands, and our backs, in gratitude for all the labors that support our world, and for all those who boldly continue the work of justice, equity, and peace. And please join me in reciting the covenant of this congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is
Now, in lieu of our outdoor togetherness singing, I would invite you all to keep the beat with me. So I will attempt to clap. Please follow me. We'll do 1 and 2 and 3, and I invite you. 1, 2, 3. Step by step, the longest march Can be one, can be one. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Very nice. We will sing that together again soon. That is from our Constitution.
Our story today is Making Promises, Making Covenants by Janine K. Grossmeyer, and I've adapted it a little bit for Labor Day. Do you remember your first day of school? I remember mine. Your parents and grandparents probably remember their first days too. Probably everyone remembers, no matter how long ago it was. Going to a new place and starting something new can be exciting and sometimes a little scary. We have a lot of questions. Where do I sit? What time do I eat? Where's the bathroom? Am I allowed to climb the trees? Does the teacher expect me to do homework? And of course, when can we go outside to play? At school, the teacher shows us where things are and explains how things work. She tells us the rules. Once we know what we are expected to do and what we are allowed to do, it's not so scary anymore. Sometimes, though, there is no teacher. On the playground, it's just kids. Sometimes we make up our own game and we decide how it ought to be played. Sometimes we make the rules. On the jungle gym, we can decide that the red bars are fire and you can't touch them when you climb. When we play tag, we can decide that the person who is it has to count to 10 before they start chasing everybody else. It can be a lot of fun to make up the rules to your very own game. You get to make it just the way you like it. That is, if the other kids agree. But what if you think the red bars on the jungle gym are fire and can't be touched, but another kid says the red bars are fine and you can touch them however you want? There are a lot of different ways to play a game. And if you don't want to play all by yourself, and you can't play tag by yourself, then everybody has to agree on what the rules are while you are playing. Maybe you can keep all the rules, or maybe you can change some. Somehow, some way, after discussing and changing and arguing and compromising, everybody agrees on what the rules should be. Maybe you don't like one of the other kids' rules all that much, and maybe someone else doesn't like your rules all that much, but you both agree to them anyway because you got some rules. Some you liked, and so did the other person. And then finally, everyone promises to each other to follow the rules with no cheating, and we can play the game. When we agree to follow the rules we make together, we are covenanting with each other. A covenant is a promise to each other about what we are going to do and how we are going to behave. We need a covenant to have fun playing a game. Covenants are not only for the playground. They can be made by people in families and by students and teachers in schools. They can be made in religions too. Our Unitarian Universalist religion has a covenant. Our UU covenant was made about 50 years ago when your parents and grandparents were young. Back then, there weren't any Unitarian Universalists. There were Unitarians and there were Universalists. Two different religions with different names, different buildings, different songs, different rules. The Unitarians and the Universalists had been talking to each other for a very long time. Even though they had different rules for how they did things, they realized they agreed on many important ideas, many principles of life. Just like the kids on the playground, they had different rules, but they wanted to play the same game. In 1960, they decided to play together. They knew they had to figure out new rules that all the Unitarians and all the Universalists would agree to follow. It took them almost a year. After discussing and changing and arguing and compromising for months and months, the Unitarians and the Universalists from hundreds of different congregations agreed on 6 principles, 6 rules that they all could agree to follow. It's true that one person might not have liked another person's ideas for rules all that much, and maybe that person didn't like the first person's rules all that much, but they agreed to follow them anyway because they knew they both got a lot of the rules they wanted, and they got to play together. They compromised, and then they covenanted. They decided to play the same game. 25 years later, in 1985, they added one more principle to make it 7. You may already have heard of the 7 principles. These are the rules that Unitarian Universalists agree to follow. Each person is important. Be kind in all you do. We're free to learn together. We search for what is true. All people need a voice. Build a fair and peaceful world. We care for Earth's lifeboats. Another place for covenants is between people who work and their bosses, who we call management. Many people who work are members of a union, which is people joining together so they can be treated fairly. By having their union, their togetherness, cared for by a contract or covenant or promise, they try to build better lives while helping management to have a successful company. When we promise to each other to follow the rules we make, we are covenanting with each other, just like the kids on the playground playing tag, just like the Unitarians and the Universalists did 50, now 60 years ago, just like unions and management too. And now let's have an anthem from Mickey.
This is Who Is My Neighbor by Amanda Udis Kessler. Who is my neighbor? Every soul who lives upon the earth. I have been called to treat each one with dignity and worth, working for justice, seeking peace, and cultivating care, offering hope to those whose lives are laden with despair. Who is my neighbor? When can I ease another's pain? I know I'll do my part. When I can bring another joy, I'll open up my heart. When I have more than someone else, I'll share the things I can. When I am tempted to be cruel, I'll try to understand. Who is my neighbor? Every soul who lives upon the earth.
Thank you. Please join me for a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. As we think about rights on Labor Day, of course, workers' rights are on our mind. But we're also seeing political assaults on fundamental rights, such as a person's control over their own body. The actions in Texas to limit abortions and the apparent support by the Supreme Court are of grave concern. The actions in Texas to restrict voting are also items of importance. I'm a former Texan. We're in Ohio, but I've read that some copycat legislation here might be in the works. So be vigilant in holding on to our rights, please. We must not reclassify rights into privileges. Hurricane Ida and its aftermath have hit many people, not just in Louisiana, but even in New York and Pennsylvania and into New England. Let us hold the people and the damages they face and fix with empathy. The end of a war is never neat and pretty. Toledo is a city that takes in refugees, and I know members of our congregation are looking for opportunities to help in resettlement and meeting other needs. May we show good welcome. And for so many, health is a major concern. May wellness come when it can, and may grace prevail when it can't. We can have joy and grieve simultaneously. May we hold on to our humanity in its best ways. For our reading at this time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, I invite you to take part in a responsive reading, We Labor in Love, by Amanda Udis Kessler, the same composer of our anthem today. The words are printed in the insert in the order of service. On Labor Day, we honor our work, physical and mental, paid and unpaid, joyous and heartbreaking. Our work can build our society, provide for our material needs, and give our life meaning. We labor in gratitude. Our work can damage our society and the planet, fail to sustain our material needs, and be meaningless. We join together to create work that supports the well-being of all. Our work can heal the world, help us understand who we are, and keep us safe. We labor in joy. Our work can harm the world, demean us, and expose us to danger. We join together to create work that is safe and humane. Our work can fill our days with accomplishments and our lives with stories. We labor in love. Our work can dissatisfy and alienate us. We may not be able to find enough work or any work. We join together to create work that blesses us, all people, and the planet. This Labor Day and all Labor Days to come, may our work and all work serve humanity and all living beings. Let's observe 1 minute of silence.
Our reading today is by Jennifer Willett, The Labor of Our Days. What images come to mind when I say Labor Day? Chances are you think of the holiday weekend and celebrations with your loved ones, the federal holiday, unions, and the cause of a working wage and benefits. Maybe the history of the struggle of working people to have a fair share of the profits from their work. Those are all great. Now, I want you to think of your parents and caregivers. The parent that fed you, bathed you, nurtured you, and taught you the building blocks of how to be in the world. Now, think of your elders, who shops for them, goes to the doctors with them, cleans for them, and cares for them when they begin to fail. Now think of those that have physical and mental challenges of differing degrees. They come in all ages. Who assist them in daily tasks that make day-to-day life easier and sometimes possible at all? Much of this work is unpaid labor, yet the work of homemaking, child care, elder care, and differently abled care isn't part of our economic system. It doesn't count on our GDP, but our society would collapse without it. Now consider the other non-paid labor we do to mentor, to educate, to assist and advocate, to entertain and enrich the community, the country, and the world. Think of all that we do for our neighbors, our friends, our community to make life better. This is labor. A paycheck isn't the only measure of your work. Without this labor, our world would be a lonelier and more desperate place. Honor your labor. If you work for money, this holiday is for you. If you work for love, this holiday is still for you. Our work makes the world better. Enjoy your day.
Here it is, a 3-day weekend with a federal holiday, Labor Day, happening tomorrow. I don't expect to speak a long time today. While not taking the sermon time off, giving only 1,000 words fits the spirit of recognizing labor, but not getting heavily into work on the holiday. I hope the concept of supporting labor is one you have. I think it's foundational for the Unitarian Universalist outlook. Not that we're always consistent. When I was preparing for ministerial fellowship, I was set back for a time because the UU bureaucracy wouldn't accept an alternative to an employer evaluation. I was a union member at the time at the Blade, and we did not have evaluations as part of the contract. I wasn't going to ask management to do something that could potentially be a contract item. But the timing worked in your calling me as the minister. So we ended up with the traditional and finally successful path to ministerial fellowship rather than community ministry. The picture on the cover of the order of service, by the way, is of a printing press when the Blade was printed in Toledo. That picture actually has one of my religion sections on the press. I think about my former colleagues at the Toledo Blade who are working with an expired contract again and having big challenges in negotiations for the next contract again, and who have gone more than 15 years now without a raise and with cutbacks. Blade workers have a hard time making ends meet, and many are leaving journalism so they can support their families, if not just themselves. We have had blade workers in our congregation, in union and management, and some of the managers rose from being union members, so they know something about labor relations too. I want you to know that I continue to support blade union workers, and I encourage you to support them too. Labor, work, is something most of us have to do. The independently wealthy might be an exception, but even many who have all the means and no need will end up doing work because it somehow serves the self, the human condition. Do ponder the reading before the sermon today that paid labor isn't the only labor, and certainly isn't the only reward for your work. Also remember that you, in our congregational polity, are really the employers of us who are Toledo Unitarians staff members. And I hope you always want to be good bosses. Reverend Aaron McEmrus was a union organizer before he entered Unitarian Universalist ministry. He wrote, "There is Power in Union, a Unitarian Universalist Guide to Supporting Worker Justice," an 18-page document tied to our Unitarian Universalist principles and political, pastoral, and practical angles for involvement. In that guide, he wrote, "I choose to use the word union because it best describes what happens when groups of individuals come together in a spirit of mutual support, respect, and love. In this sense, the concept of union is one of the most beautiful and important spiritual words in my vocabulary. Whether people are organizing through the official mechanisms of the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, or through unsanctioned means, they are nonetheless organizing themselves into a relationship of union with one another, where an injury to one is an injury to all. Although there are many legal and technical differences between how NLRB and non-NLRB organizing works, the roles religious communities can play are largely the same." McEmrus goes on, "What religious communities can offer that many groups of workers may lack are our moral authority, our financial and institutional resources, our community leadership and connections, and most of all, the willing hands and hearts of many of our congregants. So I say, take up the spirit." McEmrus adds, "Remember, from a congregational point of view, the question is not whether unions are good or bad, or whether this particular workplace needs a union or not. That is not really our business. The place we need to start from on a congregational level is at the most basic level. We want to support the democratic process. We want to support the fundamental rights of workers to speak and organize freely, and we categorically oppose all attempts to limit free speech and democracy through coercion or intimidation." Let me give one other example of church and the labor movement. There's a book called A History of the Church in 100 Objects by Mike Aquilina with Grace Aquilina, and that church is the Roman Catholic Church. Entry number 79 of those 100 objects is a union membership pin from 1903. The Aquilinas used that pin to highlight changes in industry that led Pope Leo XIII issuing a papal encyclical letter, Rerum Novarum, in 1891. Translated, the title means of revolutionary change. The encyclical also carries the title Rights and Duties of Capital and Labor. Pope Leo's encyclical, the Aquinas wrote, was affirming the rights of workers to form unions, and yet rejecting ideologies such as communism, just emerging, which encouraged strife between social classes. By encouraging Catholic participation in unions, Rerum Novarium helped to make possible the phenomenal growth of the labor movement in the decades that followed. Many union leaders of the 20th century, Cesar Chavez, for example, and Lech Walesa, would cite the profound influence of Leo XIII. Other social encyclicals would follow, often released on significant anniversaries of Rerum Novarum. Leo's manifesto remains a landmark in social thought, critical of both socialism and capitalism, but positive and synthetic in its vision and presentation. Church and state are separate, and that's a good thing. You might remember that Toledo's official motto, Laborare est orare, means to work is to pray, which might have church and state a bit too close there. However, church and labor are intertwined. So work and prayer have shared place. Please do your part to support the labor movement. We all work better when we work together. So be it.
We've come now to our time of offering. If you are so moved and able, I direct your attention to the jar over there. If you have your smartphone, you can also learn more about getting involved at uutoledo.org.
Coming soon. Next week's Spiritual Adventures Forum, I'm not sure what the topic is, but it's at 9:45. We have an outdoor service next week here as well, so it will be before that service, and it will be streaming on Zoom, I expect. If there are changes, we will let you know. Check our Toledo Unitarians social media for updates if there are to be any.
It's a mystery service. You have to tune in to find out. Immediately after today's service, say hi. It's nice if anybody's at home and wants to drop in. You can join us in the comments, but we're so glad to see you all here. And for next week, too, we will have 11 a.m. in-gathering, in-person, outdoors, and the topic will be quintessence. So stay after and bring a picnic.
And that is, in-gathering is the traditional start of our church year. So we're trying to make a big thing of it as we can. Please come if you can.
And as we end our service, I have these words by Steve Jobs. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know where you find it.
And as we extinguish the chalice flame, which miraculously relit, we send it virtually into the world. Today, let's send it with the workers collectively, hoping they have a day of rest before resuming their work, and hoping that through unions and other group movements, they make conditions better for all. The service has ended. Go in peace.